This is the Asset Protection Show. Expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund.
Welcome to the Asset Protection Show, a show dedicated to not only protecting your assets from lawsuits and creditors, but also protecting your legacy. After all, what we do isn't for ourselves, but to create generational wealth. I'm your host, John Skabelund. Today, you're going to discover how tax and asset protection systems work together to build and protect wealth. There are two distinct threats that you have to watch out for. The IRS, which your tax strategist should be helping you with, and then lawsuits, which is where your asset protection lawyer helps you. Today, my guest is Jeremy Lederer. Jeremy and I have worked together for years helping our clients build and protect their wealth. I've been honored to be the asset protection attorney creating the legal structures that work with the tax strategy that Jeremy and his team develop. Jeremy is the founder of Exit CPA. He has more than 15 years of experience as a CPA and tax strategist. He has just published a new book, The Zero Tax Strategy: How Entrepreneurs Legally Eliminate Taxes Using Government Incentives. On a personal note, Jeremy is a former professional golfer and spends his time between San Clemente, California, and Telluride, Colorado. Jeremy, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
John, I'm excited to be here. It's been a pleasure working with you and getting to know you across many facets over the last couple of years, and look forward to the conversation.
Oh, it's great to have you today. Again, congratulations on the new book. I really enjoy the practical strategies you provide, Jeremy. I've read a lot of tax books, and I really appreciate how this one actually contains solid content and how-to strategies. So, again, congratulations.
Thanks. I wish I would tell you that the process was easy. I'm sure you can relate as a technical person. The first draft was essentially a textbook, John. I wrote a textbook about like how to actually do all of these things, and thankfully I hired a coach to help me filter my thoughts, and she basically told me, Jeremy, no one's going to read this. You gotta have more stories and pictures. So I'm pleased how it finally came out with a lot of stories about real world examples about the result that we were able to achieve, rather than all the details about how we did it.
That's great. And again, I'm very impressed with it. So congratulations. So let's start with basics. I'm a big believer that we always want to start big picture and then work into details. So let's start big picture. How does a tax preparer, accountant, or tax professional differ from someone like you who's actually a tax strategist? Can you explain that to everyone?
Yeah, this happens often when I'm talking with new clients and they're scratching their heads wondering why they paid so much. Because in their minds, they knew all the strategies that should be applied to their situation. However, they had hired a tax preparer, not a tax strategist. And of course, they got what they paid for. The tax preparer simply put together their tax returns based on historical information with really no thought about how it came together, just that it was, legally correct. So they did their job, but neither person is really happy or optimizing or really trying to create the necessary level of value for the client that would ultimately allow them to achieve their wealth dream.
I like that. And so to elaborate on that, Jeremy, so I like how in the book you point out that the whole idea is to use the tax code in your favor, how the government is really incentivizing us to do what they want. Is that what tax strategy is really about, or how would you explain it to a client? What is tax strategy?
Yeah, we start with the idea that really the tax code is a series of incentives for entrepreneurs, business owners, and investors to do the things the government wants them to do. And whether it's creating jobs or creating housing or creating energy, the tax code is essentially how they get things done in Washington because legislation is so difficult. I'll ask you a question, John. Like, how many pages do you think are in the U.S. tax code?
Well, because I read your book, I kind of know the answer to that, but a lot. I don't think most of us have even come close to reading the pages. But go ahead, share.
There's actually only 80,000 pages only uh, in the actual code. But if you add in all the revenue proclamations, revenue rulings, court cases, etc., it's well over a million. And in those million pages, what percentage of those pages do you think actually pertain to paying tax?
I have no idea on that.
It's actually like paying tax. Only about 1% of the tax code, or less than that, really, is about paying the tax. It starts out by saying uh, income from all sources is taxable unless specifically excluded. Then you've got a bunch of tax tables. And then really the rest of it, John, is all about ways to avoid taxes, or what we would call the incentives for doing the things that the government wants you to do to drive the economy forward. And once the client understands this, they're really unleashed to not only reduce their taxes, but allocate capital in a way that's going to grow the economy and ultimately make the world a better place, one community at a time.
No, that's great. So let me ask a follow-up question. It's wonderful that we're helping society. We're all big believers in doing that, creating jobs. But how does someone actually use the tax code to build their own wealth? How do you help them with that?
Well, we start by asking a question like, would you rather? Would you rather write a check to the IRS or invest it in a strategic way that would also allow you to reduce your taxes? And it's kind of a no-brainer. But the key that we've realized is consulting with the client for a little while before we suggest exactly what they should do. Most people we want to work with, or most people that want to work with us, come to us, and everyone's looking for the quick answer, or like just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But it really takes some discovery to understand what strategy is going to apply to their unique situation. And we really start this with what we call the strategy development process. And it's 3 hours of live consulting with me and my team, and we're really trying to discover in detail, in depth, like how they currently make money, how they currently invest money, and what they want to happen to their money at the end of their lives. With the answers to those questions, we can create something that is truly customized and that is going to ultimately lead to not only more cash in their pockets this year, like, but also more wealth for their family and their lifetimes and beyond.
That's great. So is it really possible to get someone down to actually zero taxes?
It is. I get a lot of skeptics, but not as many, or actually none, at the end of our consulting process. One of the commitments that we make to new clients is showing them how in those 3 hours of consulting. Um, we will show them the path towards that. It won't always be in the first year, but it can be depending on their unique facts and circumstances.
Yeah, that's great. Now, one of the things that I've always enjoyed about working with you is you and I see eye to eye in that you're protecting a client's money from the IRS, whereas I'm protecting a client's money from their lawsuits, really. And so, talk to me about some of your favorite tools. As you know, the tools I use are limited partnerships and LLCs and irrevocable trust, but they're just tools to achieve an end, a goal. What are some of your favorite tax strategies? And as you just alluded to, they're always client specific. But what would you think are some of the most important ones out there that people should be considering, generally speaking?
We try to break it up into three buckets or three categories of different types of tax strategies. And those are, one, core strategies. These are probably all the things that some of your listeners have heard of. They're pretty popular on YouTube. It's things like the Augusta Rule, home office, qualified retirement plans, hire your kids, you know, um, like S corp conversion. Those are the core strategies, kind of the low-hanging fruit that will lead to maximizing deductions for a current year if you're a business owner. So we start there. We make sure that we're not missing anything easy. The second bucket would be advanced strategies. Think of these as the home runs, whereas the core strategies are kind of the base hits. And advanced strategies share some common components. Think of why people like to invest in real estate. I think probably a lot of your audience has some real estate assets and understands there are non-cash deductions like depreciation and the ability to use leverage, which can maximize the tax benefits of those non-cash deductions. So advanced strategies typically involve those two elements, and they have the potential to get even a 7 or 8 figure earner down to zero tax. And then the final category would be exit strategies. And this is where exit CPA came from or was inspired by. Most people that we work with are building towards some sort of big exit, whether it's selling their business or selling their real estate portfolio, maybe selling their Bitcoin in this day and age. But in order to avoid getting cut in half on that sale, we need an exit strategy. And I'm pleased to say that we have developed multiple zero tax exit strategies.
That's great. So let's shift gears for a moment. How does asset protection play into tax strategy? Why are we even important that we're working together?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in glove because the people that come to us with tax pain, they are they're doing well in life. They are producing excess cash flow. They are making investments. They are thinking about their future. They're thinking about their legacy, and they want to preserve that for future generations. John, you and I, we speak a common language in the form of entity maps or structure diagrams.
Right.
And I found this tool many years ago, and like, as soon as I spotted it, I knew that this had to be a part of our process because not only does it allow the client to visualize their situation more clearly, but it allows myself and my team to communicate more clearly with the client, and it allows us to communicate with people on the asset protection side, like you, John, and on the estate planning side, whatever that looks like for their current situation in their state. Um, and it becomes really a holistic approach, kind of like a virtual family office where we're optimizing for tax efficiency, IRS audit avoidance, asset protection, and estate planning all in the same year, just with different experts on the team handling their share of the implementation.
Well, I couldn't agree more with you, Jeremy. I find that it helps the client actually to be able to visualize the relationship of their assets together. Because as you know, we usually start out with the current structure of their assets, and it tends to be a hodgepodge. But after we create the plan and they can see, oh, okay, this is where my brokerage account's going to belong. This is where my real estate, this is where my business, this is where my equipment. It helps not only the client, but as you said, I've also found that it helps us as professionals in that virtual family office environment, like you said, where now we have a roadmap that you and I know, okay, this is what this entity is doing, this is what it's used for. And one of the things I really appreciated in your book was your emphasis on documentation and how we're actually making what appears to be quite complex simple. I appreciated that. So yeah, I agree with your emphasis on the roadmap and what we call the entity map, if you will. So talk to me about why is tax strategy something that someone really shouldn't be doing on their own? Can't I just read a book and do it myself?
You could, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think everyone has their own unique ability and should focus their time in the way that's going to generate the highest leverage on that time. So, whenever possible, successful people should use experts for that reason alone, but um, also so you have potentially a buffer between you and the IRS in this case, if we're talking about the implementation of the tax strategy. John, in this day and age, um, ideas are everywhere. They're floating around as literally in cyberspace. They're not even cheap anymore. They're free.
Mm.
So the challenge becomes, um, which ones apply to you, and you need a guide, I think, to help you understand which ones that even apply to you first. But more importantly, to make sure that they're implemented successfully in a way that if that unlikely event occurs and the IRS starts asking questions, looking for documentation, um, it's not you that has to produce that. It's your professional staff or professional team that has it available on demand so that when that question arises, we simply answer it with everything they ask for, and they go on about their business and bother somebody else.
Oh, well said. Many of our listeners probably have never heard of a virtual family office. I really think that's one of the most valuable services that Exit CPA provides. Tell us more about that. What is that and how does it help the client?
Yeah, so the concept started out, I believe, over 100 years ago with the Rockefellers. They had so much money they didn't know what to do with it. They needed an entire team to manage it. Attorneys of all sorts, financial or wealth managers, asset managers, accountants, you name it. Uh, Really, they could fill an entire office of professionals dedicated to managing their financial affairs. Obviously, that is not attainable for most people. From there, it evolved into like a fractional family office where wealthy families could buy a fraction of the talent in a local office, and that had its own limitations, such as you're limited to the talent in that office in that region. So a virtual family office, it's the same concept, except it's a customized team that can be assembled from professionals all across the country or even the world. But everyone needs a virtual family office, whether they know it or not. And if you're in the kind of the net worth range of 2 million to $30 million, you're probably your own virtual family office manager without even knowing it. But really, it doesn't have to be that way. And I feel like, John, when you and I are serving our clients the best, we're naturally adopting this virtual family office model and coordinating with other people on the team. Like you and I will get together with some of our clients this year, ask them what's changed, and then they don't have to repeat themselves multiple times. And you and I know what we need to do without having the client need to really filter that for us. Like we heard it directly from each other.
Right. I really think that's the biggest benefit from my perspective is I find that clients, when they've done a good job of assembling a team of professionals, their financial advisor, their tax strategist, their asset protection attorney, their estate planning attorney, perhaps an insurance broker, getting us all on the same page can be like herding chickens. And so that's where I really think your virtual family office is brilliant in that enables us to work collaboratively together in the implementation of a unified plan. Because I'm sure, Jeremy, you've never seen this where you have a tax strategy and yet the attorney might be totally off page going a different direction. And then you have the financial advisor totally unaware of the tax strategy and the asset protection and doing their own thing. And so not only is it allowing us to work together, but we're implementing and rowing the boat, is what I like to say. We're rowing the boat all in the same direction in a harmonized way. Do you agree with that or anything you would add to that analogy?
100%. Yeah, it makes it easier for the client to get the desired result across multiple dimensions.
That's great. And I appreciated how you said the typical client usually wants this once they're crossing that 2 million threshold. Is that typically, or is there a type of industry or anything that also would help any of our listeners know, you know what, I probably should be implementing this into my team?
Yeah, it's different for anybody. I think the age of the person has a lot to do with it. There's a certain point in your life where you get to, and it's harder to start over. And at that point, asset protection becomes more important. And of course, you really need to maximize every dollar that you're earning. And if that looks with tax efficiency much different than it would otherwise. So, but 2 million, I think, is a pretty good rule of thumb. Like if you can imagine, a scenario where you would lose it all and have to start over, and that makes you cringe more than you want. You should probably be putting something like this together.
No, that's great. So help me understand not just the virtual family office for a moment, but who really needs your help with their tax strategy? What are common types of clients that need your help?
Yeah, mostly we see that we can create the highest value for people that are earning over, $250,000 per year. At that point, they're paying, in some cases, $100,000 of tax, and we're able to come up with a solution that allows them to, instead of paying that tax, make a strategic investment that's going to generate some significant tax savings, and it really boosts their chances of creating a legacy for their family.
Right. And I know personally, I can share with the audience that you've done that personally for me. Instead of writing that check to the IRS, you were able to help me with an investment that not only zeroed out my taxes, which I was happy about, but now I have an asset that is going to produce income rather than just writing a check to Uncle Sam. So that's great.
And that's my favorite part of the strategy, by the way, is when we can shift tax day into payday. You were a first year client we worked with last year, and that happens every time. The people that are normally procrastinating to get their tax returns done, all of a sudden when they realize they have a refund coming back, like they're ready to go in March.
No, that's a good point. But that's right. What we're doing, as you know, is really to bless the next generation. It starts with our children, our grandchildren, and the community around us. So it may sound selfish when people who are wealthy are concerned about themselves, but it really isn't an I-focused thing.
Mhm.
It is about how do we make our lives better for the next generation.
I couldn't agree more. And I would add to that, I'm sure you've seen this too, but in my experience, entrepreneurs are very generous people. And not only that, like they're the best allocators of capital in the world. And by choosing to allocate their capital away from the Washington, D.C. swamp and into their local communities and businesses, I mean that's what I mean by like making the world a better place, one community at a time.
Hmm.
It's a scary statistic. I heard this a few years back, but every dollar that goes into Washington, D.C., only 60 cents makes it out.
Hmm.
Like it gets absorbed there. But a dollar reinvested in your local community can multiply by 10.
So, Jeremy, when should someone start working with someone like you to implement a tax strategy? What are some telltale signs that it's really time to professionalize this?
Yeah. Um, I heard two things there. I'll answer them both. The best time to get started is now. It's still August when we're recording this. Maybe this comes out in September. But I wouldn't wait much longer, just because a lot of these strategies, although you'll understand them by the end of the year, there's a big difference between understanding which strategy applies to you and which ones you can actually implement in the same year. So, although it seems like we still have time, like now is the best time to get started. And in terms of when to start working on your tax strategy, I would say whenever you feel like you're paying too much in tax is a good time to reach out.
That's great. And as you know, there's a lot of tax strategists out there. What advice would you give to our listeners as to how to evaluate whether they're working with the right person?
Well, hopefully you're working with one, but if you're not, they should be bringing you ideas. Like it shouldn't be the other way around, where you're educating yourself and bringing them ideas and asking them, uh, what they should do for you. Like they should be bringing you ideas. I'd say that's number one. They should be proactive. They should be asking you questions. They should be constantly trying to understand how your situation has changed. Of course, we always like to know when things change and encourage our clients to tell us that. But really, proactivity, like bringing ideas, would be the number one.
That's fantastic. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about tax strategy, what you do, and how you can help them?
You know, I would love to make an offer to anyone listening. If you think you're paying too much taxes, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to assess your situation and see if we can do something before year end.
Great. And how should they contact you? What's the best way?
The best way would be to email my team at strategy@exitcpa.com, and we'll make sure that an appointment is set. And as long as you have your tax returns ready for that, we can go into action mode, from that first conversation on.
And exit is spelled xitcpa.com?
Yes, sir. Strategy at xitcpa.com.
Perfect. Well, Jeremy, really appreciate your time today. It's always a pleasure being able to chat with you and catch up. Again, congratulations on the book. And for my listeners that are passionate about asset protection, I enjoyed, Jeremy, how you shared the same analogy I like to use, which is asset protection is a lot like a chess game, in that we are just moving pieces around to protect the king and to control the board. So I really appreciated the substance of asset protection that you included into a tax book. So well done.
Thanks, John. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, as always.
All right. Take care.
You've been listening to the Asset Protection Show, expert strategies by attorney John Skabelund. For more information, go to assetprotectionshow.com.
This content is legal information only and not legal advice. Viewing this content does not create an attorney-client relationship. Mr. Skabelund is admitted to practice law in Arizona, and he may be reached at ultimateassetprotection.com.